Ready for the 5 seconds of silence. Why, hello.
Hey there.
So we watched Encanto a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, first time. And, you know, we're watching it, listening to the music, and I'm like, man, like whoever wrote this really ripped off Hamilton.
I remember that.
And then we get to the end, and I'm like, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is the, of course, composer of Hamilton.
AKA Hamilton.
Yeah, he can, I guess, rip off himself.
He can do that.
But it was funny. There was like just little segments. I'm like, this is very Hamilton-y.
You know, in the design industry, we would call that continuity. Because his style it has an identity of him through it.
Well, I guess that's a good thing then.
Yeah. It means that he's true to his own style.
Yeah. Speaking of Encanto, like thinking about the movie. So if you haven't seen Encanto, it might be a spoiler, but I'm not sure it will be. So the idea is that
Not much to spoil.
like the family, you get a special gift when you're 7, that you get a new room in the house. And, you know, they make a big deal about one of the family members not receiving a gift. That's kind of the very first part of the movie, so I don't think it's much of a spoiler. But you think about the gifts that people did receive. So they really focus on the one that didn't get a gift, but then think about the weird gifts that were given out.
Let's see. Strength, flowers, weather control.
But not actually weather control.
Emotional weather.
Yeah, emotional weather control. Healing through cooking.
Oh, right.
That one's probably the best.
Yeah, forgot that one.
The ability to transform yourself, your body. That's
Somebody
one of the
can do that?
cousins. Yeah.
Oh,
The
that's
boy
right. He was a
cousin.
shapeshifter.
Yeah, shape-shifting.
Okay.
Get it right. And then you have the ability to hear people.
Oh,
Even
right.
a little whisper or pin drop.
Yeah, and prophecy.
Yeah, can you imagine being a 7-year-old? Oh, prophecy, yeah. That one's not a bad one. Although, you know, we don't talk about Bruno. Can you imagine being a 7-year-old and your door appears and, like, you are coming into your gift and it's like, you can hear everything. Congratulations. Like, how underwhelming would that be? Wouldn't it be better to not get a gift at all than to get that gift?
Yeah, I don't want to hear what everyone else hears. I'd like to hear a little better than I hear. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's like she can hear everything. That's her superpower. She can hear stuff. And I know it's all a metaphor about like how the family has gifts and how you handle it when someone doesn't have the apparent gifts that you desire. But the idea is like their family serves the town.
Right.
And
Well,
so
you could say that the mother is the healing salve because she has the gift of healing, right? Through cooking.
yeah.
The sister that's strong, she's always the one that comes to take care of all the problems.
Yeah, very service oriented.
One listens into everybody's conversation because she can't help it.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, the
Social
prophetic
chameleon.
social chameleon.
Yeah, like the guy that can.
Oh, right. He blends in with all situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds like a family to me.
It does. And you have the aunt that's crazy and like controls the weather based on her mood. So she's just like way over dramatic and
Comes in like
brings,
a hurricane.
Yeah, everyone into her situation. Like a narcissist. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hate to be that 9-year-old being like, here's your gift. You can hear stuff well.
It wouldn't be fun.
It would stink. Oh, and then the gift that's given, I think that would be a spoiler to reveal. That was a pretty good gift. The most recently given gift in the family.
I slept through most of the movie.
You did. It always makes me a little angry.
I can't help it. Like, let's watch a family movie.
I know, and I hear snoring next to me. I'm like, really?
It's what you're supposed to do as a dad. Sleep in a chair.
Is there a dad book that I missed because I'm not a dad?
Maybe it was in the dad playbook, not the mom playbook.
So when I was pushing a baby out of my hoo-ha, you were getting the dad book.
That's right.
And you took advantage of that moment of distraction to, you know, slip a dad book into your bag.
One of the male nurses came in and gave me that.
Yes, from the League of Dads.
Yes.
Here's your dad book.
He wasn't there for anything else. That's the one thing he does.
There were so many people in that room when I gave birth to Christina that they could have slipped like a couple of like not social security, no, Secret Service, not social security.
Definitely not social security.
There's Secret Service of the dad band of brothers.
Sure. Yeah, he gave it to me as a book on tape.
Yeah, what other things are in that book? So falling asleep during family movies.
I can't tell you.
Oh, you can't tell me. Never asking for help or directions.
What else do you think's in this book?
He's trying to hand me an invisible shovel, but you can't like have an invisible shovel when you're the woman. Only the men can have a hole that they dig themselves into.
As you pass me the invisible shovel back.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm Dale.
I'm Kit.
Welcome to Catholic Hitch. We are a Catholic family seeking heaven and hoping to pick up others along the way.
Small talk. So you're looking at me like, what are we going to talk about?
Pretty much.
So I've given you a couple options. We had back to school last week, and a couple nights ago, I brought out the book that we use to talk to our kids about adult stuff.
Sure.
To have the talk.
That one's easy.
And so I was showing it to another mom because we had, some friends over. And, that subject came up, and I'm like, this is the book I always have to rebuy because I give it to people, like to lend it to them for use of giving their kids the talk, and I never get it back because everyone's so afraid of giving the talk to their kids. And that would be the Birds and the Bees talk.
I mean, I did level up. I did not snicker.
You were the one to read the book. Mm-hmm. So we have a book. It's designed for 3 to 8-year-olds or 3 to 7-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And it's an illustrated book. I think it's great.
It's difficult for 40-year-olds to read. It
yeah,
is.
I know.
It is. In our society, it's difficult because we don't talk about these things.
It is. So normally I'm the one that does the reading. So we gather all the kids together. Mm-hmm. So the kids that have received the book talk already, plus anyone that has not. And we all sit down, and usually mom is the one that reads the book because
Deadpan.
I can hold it together. Mm-hmm. But this year we had a baby that just needed to be soothed at that time. Mm-hmm. So you took over and you did great.
I had to.
Good. We're getting periodic updates from our second youngest that he's not yet stabbed himself with the scissors. Because I told him that's when scissors go away forever, and he'll be the first adult to not be allowed to cut cardboard with scissors.
The first adult?
Yeah, because he won't ever be allowed.
Wow. Oh, I see.
He's losing. He will lose it for all of time.
He'll come back, and he will be not allowed. Like, you'll pass the scissors to one of his other siblings. Yes, to his wife. Sure.
On the night of his wedding.
He's called to marriage. You'll give him.
Otherwise, it's the archbishop I'm handing scissors to.
You're handing scissors to the archbishop. Archbishop, you can never let him have scissors. He will cut himself. That'll go over really well, won't it?
I would laugh so hard.
You wouldn't even be able to.
But no one else would understand, and I'd look like a psycho.
So, in other words, you'd make me deadpan the talk about the scissors, but you can deadpan the talk about the birds and the bees.
Yeah, I'm going to go get the book because I think I want to share the title. It's not a, Theology of the Body book. It's not a Catholic book, but it comes from a Christian perspective.
No, it's definitely not a Catholic book. And the reason I can say this is, so I've been reading the older version of this book. So for 11 to 13-year-olds or something like that, 14. 8 to 11, sure, whatever. This book, What's the Big Deal? Why God Cares About Sex. And this book very much does not talk about vocation. It assumes that all human beings on earth will have an intimate moment which revolves around sex. So it's not a bad thing in the fact that it teaches it well. You learn, how to have the conversation. It's not my favorite because it's a dialogue, like you're reading a script with your kids and then you talk about the script.
No, I think that makes it great, actually.
I think it makes it horrible.
So I think All right, we're kind of talking about the wrong one.
Yeah, yeah.
So this the book that we use is from the series God's Design for Sex. And we've never gotten book 1 because it's intended for like super littles. But book 2 is designed for ages 5 to 8. And we really have had the talk with the kids within that specific age range. So we've usually gone after giving them the information like earlier rather than later. And that's partially because we have our kids in public school. And, me, myself, I found out about the birds and the bees from other kids at my public school when I was in the 1st grade. So by the time my parents gave me the talk in like middle school, it was, I was already in the loop a little bit, and it just made it a very uncomfortable experience. So it was always my intent to try to make sure that that doesn't happen to my kids, where they're getting weird, confusing information from other students, that they're getting weird, confusing information from their teachers at school. So that's kind of been our prerogative, is like, we need to beat these systems to telling our children about this to make sure that it's accurate what they're getting. And I don't think it's bad for our children to know like the biological terminology and to know, frankly, like where babies come from.
Why shouldn't they?
I don't think it's been a bad thing. And actually, in a way, it's been less uncomfortable than my experience getting the talk from my parents, because the kids are so young. Like, it's not weird yet for them.
Well, yeah, it teaches them what happens. It just doesn't teach them, well, it teaches them in some way the why, but it assumes that the why happens because all men and women come together and procreate.
I know, but we don't need to, we're being really direct with our kids about listening to God's call to like a vocation. We are. So I'm not worried about that in our family. Yeah. But it does assume that like everyone's called to marriage.
Yeah, I'm just saying like that is the perspective of the book, which is the one caveat I think to it. Like, if you kind of have that preface, especially with the older kids, about vocation, then I think it's a good book.
Yeah. Agreed. So the early book 2, it's just like an illustrated story, and it is graphic, but it's nicely illustrated, where it's not like a diagram from science class of like naked bodies. It's kind of like watercolor.
Yeah, the impressionist.
Yes.
Kind of approach to it.
But it's also not necessarily like hiding what's going on, because I think that was maybe like the way that we tackled this subject matter in the past, and I'm not sure that that's going to be successful in this day and age.
Right, because yes, it is something that you can study by science, but as we know, science doesn't really understand how to explain the why of sex at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, they don't understand, which is, I think, part of the trouble or the problem.
And I'd say our culture, we don't live in a culture anymore where you can explain like the night before a wedding happens to like a woman and a man, like, individually, like what's about to go down.
If you wait to that point, your kids probably have already done and experimented, because you didn't tell them.
That's what I'm saying is our culture isn't going to support that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, because the culture already told them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, now at like what age? 7, 8, 9?
Yeah. The culture is teaching our children and adults themselves that they are just animals, big animals that can't control themselves, period.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And shouldn't control themselves, and that if you even try to control yourself, you're obviously mentally ill.
Yeah.
You're just a big animal, and you need to like just do those animal things. That's what our culture does. So we can't, protect our kiddos from this knowledge anymore. And I don't know, this has been a really great way for us to talk to our kids about the subject matter. And I like the second book because of it being a dialogue. The way it's written, it's like a parent, a pretend parent having conversations with, dad with their son, mom with her daughter. And the way that you're supposed to read it is like the child reads the like part of the child in the book, and the adult reads the part of the adult. And so what it forces you to do is have a very like straightforward conversation. And then at the end, after you go through the dialogues, you can actually talk about it a little bit more if there's additional questions. But instead of a kiddo having these questions organically and you having an organic response that might not be well formed in the moment, it is a very well formed response. And so it provides you with the words to say, like in response to a very real question that children are going to have. So in that way, I like it. You, I guess, don't.
Yeah, I guess I would, for me, because I'm helping with Terrence, reading is not an easy way to understand information. And so I'd much rather have, here's the bullet points of the things that you should be talking about, and then talk with him about those things.
Well, so you could approach it and do an annotated like guide of each chapter yourself as a dad.
That's kind of how I've had to do it. Is I've read both sides, and then we stop, pause, ask question, keep reading.
Okay. Yeah. I think it works even so. Mm-hmm. So anyway, and there's a fourth book that we have not purchased yet. But yeah, we had the talk, and the kids were giggly on the bed.
Well, no. Terrence was giggly.
Yes, sorry.
And
Terrence
therefore, everyone else started getting giggly.
got giggly.
And I had to hold myself in reserve.
You did really well.
And focus. You know how I did it?
How?
I pretended that I had to go do a poomse, and I had my judges there, and I had to put my game face on.
Okay, so you just dig deep.
Calm, cautious, courageous.
Yeah. For me, I just consider that if I want my kiddos to take this like subject matter seriously, I need to just take a deep breath and push through. Even though, yeah, a lot of the stuff that you are sharing, like you and I came out of just an era where I think we were taught too old about this information, and we were taught at an age where we felt it was like really awkward to learn from your parents. It wasn't like a natural thing anymore, at least for me. How did you have a talk with your mom, or was it more like the school taught you?
It was, I think, after the school gave us, the mandatory 6th grade talk.
Okay.
So they take the boys in this room and the girls in that room.
That was 5th grade for me.
Yeah, may have been 5th grade. I don't remember. All I remember is all of us boys sniggering, and because we had basically at that point all seen porn, every one of us.
Yeah.
And so we had a means of understanding that there were bodies and things that happen with sex, and so we were making all kinds of improper jokes.
Yeah, which is when that's like your first experience of like talking about this stuff, you do not come from a foundation of being able to have just like an open, direct conversation about it without getting giggly. And so I think it's really hard for us.
Immature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's like there's really not a lot of giggly stuff when it comes to this. It's just it's a private matter between two people. And anything that's private, I think, has an air of mystery, and in this particular sense, the fact that babies come from this thing makes it extra mysterious, and there's just gonna be giggles.
Yeah, it's a means to provide value where the culture devalues it, breaks it apart from what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're like approaching having kiddos, I really do think we've done this prior to kindergarten with all of our kids, even in the middle of like preschool with our kids, and I thought it was a really good experience to do it at that age. So again, it's from the series God's Design for Sex. It's a Protestant series, so it isn't like theology of the body per se, but we've used it, and I think it's really well done. Yeah.
So the author, at least for the first book, is Carolyn Nystrom. She's apparently written 80 books.
Nice.
That's a lot of books.
That is a lot of books.
And then the second one, Stan and Brenna Jones, Wheaton College.
Nice. Okay.
Sure. Sounds good. There you go. What's the big deal?
Indeed.
Big talk.
All right. So I wanted to share a quote and just kind of have a conversation with you about it today. So I did a little bit of a day retreat yesterday. It was probably more of a workshop than a retreat in the end, because I just missed out on some prayer time, unfortunately. But you know what the universal...
We call those offsites.
So, but it was not offsite.
Yeah. On-sites.
It was an on-site. Anyway, so what is the universal call to holiness?
Oh, now that's on the spot. To I know this.
I know you do. We've talked about it.
To love and serve the Lord, basically, right?
Well, that's the purpose of life. But yeah, the universal call to holiness is the idea that like holiness is not like exclusive to people who are in the religious life. That ordinary laity can also be holy.
Yeah, because God didn't say, or Christ didn't say, hey, only you priests and sisters, you get to go to heaven.
Yeah, but for a long time, that was the way people saw holiness. Holiness was for religious people. This is pre-Vatican II.
A disorder
Yeah.
was occurring.
Yeah.
In that time period, absolutely.
So when we did our study on Zélie and Louis
Yes.
Martin, they were a little extraordinary of their time that they saw themselves like as within the vocation of marriage as being capable of being holy and actually pursuing sanctity.
Yeah, they were the poster family of building the domestic church in their time period.
Yeah, but they lived in a time when that was not normal.
Well, right. Remember, because people would look at them as they were going to church again and again and again, and they're like, oh, there go the Martins.
Yep, they could set their alarms by like the Martins' door opening to go to daily mass and know that they had time to sleep in still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so the universal call to holiness is the idea that we all are called to holiness, to be saints. So when we teach, children, we teach adults, like we are all supposed to be saints. And literally the definition of a saint is someone that's in heaven.
Yes.
So a canonized saint is like someone that the church recognizes as being a saint.
Has gone through process.
We hope,
we assume.
we hope everyone that has died that we love is a saint right now.
Yeah.
But we don't know that for sure until we get there.
Yep.
Or else when they're canonized by the church. So I wanted to read a quote to you. It's from Redemptoris Missio, which is an encyclical written, I want to say, by St. John Paul II, but I'm not actually 100% sure about that.
The Missal of Redemption, is that right?
Mission of Redemption, I think it would be Redemptoris Missio. So it says, the universal call to holiness is closely linked to the universal call to mission. Every member of the faithful is called to holiness and to mission. So, what would mission be? Like, what do you think that universal call to mission means?
So we're all called to be holy, which we can do only if we understand the mission in which God calls us to do that work. That's like,
not per se, actually.
That's how I would look at it. Like, if I'm called to be holy, I should be living a chaste and devout life in whatever form God calls me to, but I can't do that unless I've listened and discerned to what God is calling me to do. So like there's the inward approach and then there's the outward approach, right? So if God calls me into mission of being a prayer warrior and praying for everyone, that might be my mission. But I have to listen to listen to him to discern what exactly or how the road is detailed for me to get on. Like, how am I going to get there? That's mission to me.
Okay. In this context, I think the snippet is specifically pointing to evangelization.
Well, yeah, I knew that was
probably where I was leading.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Great Commission, you know what the Great Commission is?
Go therefore and make disciples.
Yep, of all men, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
I think it's in Matthew, right?
Yep, Matthew 28:10. I think it's the verse. But yeah, that's like the Great Commission. So that's what we are supposed to be doing. And so, with this quote, we all know we're supposed to be holy, but this quote really directs us to going out and fulfilling the Great Commission, which means we have to go ask others to follow Christ. We have to bring Christ to other people. So how do you feel about that?
Totally fine.
Totally fine?
Yeah.
What does it mean to bring Christ to other people?
So before our conversation yesterday.
I know. So go back in time a little bit.
I would say that is you just living your life. Like you you need to be doing what you have been called to do by God. Prayer, being in relationship with him. And then there are going to be those moments where God says, hi, person enters your life. Here's your opportunity. Here's your moment, So, I don't know. Do you have those moments where, like, when you're talking with a person, you're like, okay, God, please send the Holy Spirit, because I know this is one of those moments where I have an opportunity to speak and represent you. It doesn't mean I'm thumping a Bible, but it means that I am a ambassador, representative of our Catholic faith. And so when someone sees me and they're talking to me, I have to be brave enough to actually be open to talk about my faith, but I'm not like, breaking out Matthew and dropping, chapter and verse.
You have a very sophisticated perception of evangelization that I actually am being brought into. So I did this on site. And some of what we were talking about was the idea of evangelization and that universal call to evangelization, meaning like we're supposed to bring other people to Christ.
Yeah.
And so my automatic, the image that I get in my head when it's like, all right, Kit, you're supposed to be an evangelist now. It is, all right, go get my sandwich sign. Go put that sandwich sign on. Go out to the 16th Street Mall and start telling people about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them Jesus loves them. Tell them they need to know Jesus to go to heaven.
Just like we assume as the stereotype of every single Protestant person out there.
Yeah.
That's the stereotype.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I'm ready to do that, nor do I want to do that. And all I can see is like, I'm going to destroy every relationship I have.
Yeah. I guess for me, I wouldn't be able to call it what we're calling it now as evangelization, but like since, honestly, I think it was since Christ Renews His Parish, when I went through that process, there were just moments where I would have an opportunity, and I wasn't trying to have the opportunity. I'd just be, all right, it's morning prayer on the bus. Somebody comes out of the woodwork and it's like, hey, I want to do what you're doing, and we pray together. Or like I'm at the Knights Hall in the parking lot, and a dude's walking through, and he just asked me a random question, and I end up praying with the guy. Like that's those moments. I don't ask for them, but they kind of came. So I mean, even I met with a gentleman this week at some point. We had coffee and we're talking business, but he brought up that their business, one of the things that they hold as a tenet, core value, is that they pray at every meeting. Well, then with that as an opening conversation, I like break into the kerygma and we talk about that. And I sent him the rescue project, and it turned out his sister actually works at a Catholic parish. I don't think he's Catholic, but I sent him the information. I said, hey, might be interested in this, and you might send it to your sister too. And he's like, great, thanks for that. I'm always looking for good information, but it wasn't like, the kind of thing. But I left at the bottom of it and said, I'm looking forward to getting to know you over time, rather than be like, here's all this factoid information. It'll save your life. Go find Jesus, that kind of a thing.
Well, yeah, I think like I've always been impressed by your just instinct when it comes to sharing God with others, and a little envious that you are able to like identify those situations. And after I had this thing yesterday, we're going to be going through another workshop actually in a couple of Wednesdays from now with the same guy that like facilitated yesterday.
Yeah.
So the model that we're using is accompaniment, and the image of it that they're teaching, I should say,
right,
that we were learning about yesterday. The image is the road to Emmaus, and how Jesus comes alongside these disciples, and he just chats with them, and he's not like, you guys need to go back. Like, he's accompanying them and teaches them and kind of refuels their fire and, leaves them to make the choice to like turn around to go back to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And there was a really cool image that the facilitator used that I probably won't get into now. But you just have an instinct for kind of how to share your faith that, yeah, I've always envied a bit. And I don't know where that line lies. And so when I start, hearing about like I'm being called to evangelize, I think about, my next door neighbor. I think she and I get together for coffee. She comes from a Protestant perspective. I've never hidden my Catholicness, and she comes into our house and sees all the icons and this and that. But I like think, if I'm called to evangelization, I'm supposed to like bring her to Jesus more. And all I can think of is if I ever kind of go that direction, like it's probably going to destroy my relationship with her.
So you have fear.
I do have fear.
But the thing is you evangelize her every time she's here. You do.
So in a way,
because you
yes.
live a chaste life.
But I think
you don't hide like that you're going to church or going to mass or that you're the director of faith formation, like
I know I don't. And
right, because that's just the common talk.
And I mean, we have a Mary in front of our house, so we're definitely not hiding our Catholic identity in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I think that when it comes to evangelization, it's really easy to rest in that place where you're like, I'm open about who I am, and if someone wants to ask, like, I'll help them. But until that point, I'm not really ever going to engage with someone because I'm just being a model.
I get it.
And that's not, I think, where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think so. It's the cliche way of saying it, but like the leap of faith. So as an example, in my martial arts school, I've had folks that have had, family members who've had cancer or have had troubles in their marriage, and I'm not like asking for that, but when it does come up, I'm like, hey, what's their name? Do you mind if I pray for them? I don't ask like, hey, let's pray right now. I don't know these people enough to do that. Now, some of them I'm getting to know more, and I think can be opportunities in those relationships, but I'm not there yet. But like, is that like, if somebody comes up to you and you've known them, but you know them like a coworker?
Well, so I don't want to get into like the details, but they're starting to share kind of the tools for how to identify where someone is, and then the actual like beneficial kind of things to help assist that person to a decision point. And I got emotional actually yesterday because, I've been a Catholic my whole life. I'm almost 40 years old. And how can it be that no one has ever talked to me about the idea that evangelization is my responsibility and that I need to actually be assertive with evangelization. Like, I can't just let it happen and be passive. And can you imagine if we were to start changing mindsets so that everyone was evangelistic and saw it as a personal responsibility? The facilitator yesterday said, what churches are stuck in is we have all these things that are going on, these ways of learning, these Bible studies. Sorry, I need to turn my phone off.
We'll pause here.
Yep, we will pause.
That's my mother.
All right.